Hi everyone, it's Kristie Taylor here from Kristie Taylor Creations, and today I'm super excited to tell you about a new stencil I have coming out with StencilGirlProducts.com. This is one of the ATC mix-up stencils, and it has so many beautiful flowers and words and really cool designs that I think you're going to have a lot of fun creating with it. I've used it to make these ATC cards. I've used it in my art journal, all kinds of different ways. So I started out with a piece of chipboard and I measured it out so that I could get artist trading card sized portions out of it, which is 2.5 by 3.5. And I cut that with my paper trimmer. You can see my kitty there for a visit, checking out what I'm doing. She's like, "Hi, what you doing, mommy?" Nope, don't touch me. I just want to put my tail in your camera view. That's okay, right? Silly cat. She loves to visit me when I'm sitting at my desk. So I've just cut all those out. Kitty's name is Squiddy, and of course she had to play with my little paper scraps. She's so cute. And of course she carries it off. She's like, "Oh, this is mine now." So then once I had those all cut, I needed to start decorating them. So I'm using Rebekkah Meir Designs Mixed Medium Medium by Thermoweb, and I'm spreading that on the back of a piece of the lightweight art paper, also by Rebekkah Meir. This stuff is really cool and fun to work with. I had spread some inks on this, some distress inks and stamped, and did all kinds of things to get it ready, and this will serve as my background. Now I've let the mixed media adhesive sit for about 2 minutes just to start getting tacky. And then I'm sticking the cardstock that I cut down onto it and rolling it on with a brayer to help it stick. And then I'll set that aside and let it dry. Now this is also a piece of the Rebekkah Meir designs. This is the one that has the adhesive on the back. Mixed media art paper. I did the same thing with this. I used some watercolor sprays. Um, I wanted to create two different color schemes of artist trading cards. And I thought I would try this one and see if how well this sticks to the cardboard, and it did an excellent job. It did awesome. So I'm just sticking those down just like I did the other ones, and you can see how sticky it is. It's very sticky. And that's a good thing. So I just stuck all those in place and then used my scissors to cut them out. You roll it down with a brayer to help it stick. And then once they're cut out, this is just a little bit of gesso, and I watered it down just a little. And I'm just spreading it on different spots of each of the little cards, and this will kind of push a little bit of that color back so that we can add some color and texture and designs on top, and it'll still show up well. There's Squiddy back again. What you doing, Mom? That smells good. Is it for me? No? Hmm. Okay, get out of the way, kitty. I don't push her away because then she doesn't come visit me anymore. And I would miss her. She's funny. She just kind of wandered in our house one day and said, "Okay, I live here now. House full of dogs," and she just wanders. So I'm just dabbing that gesso on in random spots so I don't have straight lines. And this will also create a little bit of texture too. Once that's done, I'm going to spread out some of my other mandala stencils over top of all the pieces and spray it with some acrylic spray. This is Mr. Huey's, and oh my gosh, I don't even know how long I've had this in my stash. I found it when I was unpacking. The color is called Passport, and it's such a pretty blue. Very nice. And then I'm using an extra piece of the mixed media paper to dab up some of the excess ink that's on top of the stencils. We'll use that on another project. Okay, now let's bring in our awesome new stencil. If you look at that design that's in the upper right hand corner, you actually have to turn that sideways to see what it is. It's a lotus flower with a leaf. It's very pretty. I'm using a water-based spray paint by Montana. I love these paints. You can use them inside. There's no smell. They don't give you a headache. And I'm just spraying randomly the shapes on top of some of the stencils. And again, this is just still creating more background texture. See, they already look pretty. Now I'm just spraying them again. Just some homemade ink spray there, I think. I can't remember which one I used, to be honest. So now let's add some detail. So now I'm going to get some white craft paint, and using my makeup sponge, I'm just dabbing it over top. And some of those acrylic colors that we sprayed on are going to come up through that ink, but it's still going to look great. Now I'm going to use some black gesso, and I'm going to use this makeup sponge and do this the same way. And this is one of the words. This one's namaste. One of my favorite words. It has so much meaning, but look how gorgeous that is. Oh my gosh, it's so pretty. And I'm just going to repeat this process with different portions of the stencil and different designs on random cards. Sometimes I'll use white, sometimes I'll use black. Now we're going to put in some Deco Art Americana Premium Acrylic Paint. One of my favorite paints to play with because it's very nice and thick and easy to spread. And I tried to stick with the same color schemes with this set of cards, and then we'll use a different color scheme on the other set. I love this lotus flower. I bent that one little piece of that petal, so I just went ahead and took that out and was taking it out of the package. This is one of my previous stencil releases. It's called Tightly Woven, and it adds great texture. Now here's that sideways lotus flower I was telling you about. So pretty. Back to the black gesso. Decided I needed a little more on that one. So we'll just repeat this process and just keep going. Now I'm just outlining some of the words and some of the designs with the white gel pen, just to help them kind of pop back off of the background some. Now I'm going to use some Thermoweb purple tape. This stuff is awesome with stencils. I reuse my pieces so you can see it kind of isn't sticking to my craft mat there. But I'm dabbing on some embossing ink with my makeup sponge through the stencil because I decided I wanted some embossing on these cards. I love embossing, and thanks to Sept after, he reminded me how much I love embossing. I don't have any of his powders yet, but I have some that I've had in my stash for a while, and I'm going to use those. These are Piccolo embossing powders by Globecraft, and there's an image of that embossing ink that I use by Ranger. And I'm also going to be using some mixed media transfer foil by Rebekkah Meir. This embossing powder is called Vintage Black. It's yummy with some black and some awesome gold pieces in it. So we're going to sprinkle that on the wet embossing ink, tap off the extra, and I'm tapping it onto a piece of paper so I can put it back in my jar. Now it's very chunky embossing powder, so we won't get a lot of detail, but the texture that we're going to get is going to be awesome. I don't even know if this company is still in business, to be honest. We need to look that up. And then I'm just going to hold it in place with my scissors and heat it with my heat tool to melt the embossing enamel. See all that beautiful gold and black. Oh, that's so gorgeous. Now, very quickly, while that embossing enamel is still hot, we're going to press on some of that transfer foil. Yeah, you don't want to press too hard because it is hot. And the foil is going to stick to that wet embossing powder. Look how yummy that is. Oh, I just love it. I actually decided I needed a little bit more, so I did reheat this one and do it over again. And making sure you have all that embossing ink up is very important because the foil won't stick to it because it's wet. So I reheated this embossing enamel again and then stuck the foil back down to it, just like before. Stick it back down there while it's still hot, and this time it stuck a lot better. And then I'm going to use some distress ink to ink around the edges and kind of bring it all in. Look at all that gorgeous foil. Shiny, shiny, yes. And I repeated this process on several different pieces. Just want to make sure it's dry before I stack it up on top of the other ones. And I outlined that flower with a gel pen to help it stand out more. Just going to repeat the same process. Embossing ink, embossing powder, heat it up, and stick the foil on top. This is a finer embossing powder since we had a finer image. Make sure it's nice and hot. Oh my gosh, I love it so much. So there we go. There's some samples of all the different artist trading cards that I made. If you would like me to send you one, just leave me a comment and let me know. I hope you will get this ATC mix-up stencil. It's so much fun. It's so useful with so many different designs. I really think you're going to like it. Thanks so much for visiting today. You can find my stencils at stencilgirlproducts.com.